In the last days, he will restore the tabernacle of David. What is the tabernacle of David? Is the house of David. If you're new to this channel, first off, welcome. Secondly, I strongly encourage you to understand the order of king and priesthood that we are now entering in the second coming of Jesus Christ. It's the order of Melchizedek. It is how we are kings and priests unto the Most High through the house of David. Okay? What's amazing is he said there was a promise he would restore the tabernacle of David. We're going to talk about the tabernacle of David briefly. This is only skimming the surface without really spending lots of time. There's a whole playlist on the house of David and what is the tabernacle of David. That's what we're going to talk about. Essentially, if you want to understand what's happening in the book of Revelation, you must understand what is happening in the tabernacle of David. So, what is the tabernacle of David? Essentially, we have David. Oh, we have jet fighters flying over. We have the tabernacle of David being set up in Jerusalem. So David comes into Jerusalem. He comes into Jerusalem and takes over an area of the Jebusites. They were there previously, okay? He takes Zion. It's then called Mount Zion. And when he does, he begins to build a house of the Lord, okay? And one of the things he does is he makes nails, okay? And he begins to build. But he goes to the prophet and asks for a word of the Lord, and the prophet says, no, you are not to build a temple. It will go to your son. So what David builds is not something permanent. David builds something, he puts something in place, puts something in order, because he brings the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem, and when he does, he doesn't follow the proper proceedings. It's on an ox cart, it falls over, someone stays it, and he dies. And David's like, what the heck? You know, we're very excited, we're doing lots of worship, but we're doing it wrong. So he goes to say, oh, okay, well, in order to do this properly, we have to have the Levites. They're the ones that bear the Ark of the Covenant. There's supposed to be poles in it. Okay, we're supposed to do this a certain way. So he goes through the Torah to understand how to do this. Okay, how do we do this? How do we enter the capital city of the Promised Land? How do we begin to build this house? So he is the architect. He is the craftsman. He gets the pattern. Moses got the pattern, and he was there to build it. David got the pattern, and he passed on the building and construction to his son and to others. But what he gets is everything that we must learn and understand to enter this era of king and priesthood. Okay. What is the house of David? What is the tabernacle of David? You can see we have a tabernacle here. We'll show it to you later. And keep in mind, guys, everything I'm saying isn't just Bible study. This is how I live. Okay, there's a reason you see me in this tabernacle. It's part of the message, okay? It's part of the restoration of the second coming of Jesus Christ, okay? His parousia, his revealing, okay? That he would restore and build the tabernacle of David. Now, so here's our tabernacle. So, of course, we have the Feast of Tabernacles, but that is square, as you can see. And we had set this up before, like the tabernacle of Moses with the seat. We have a menorah. We have a table, seat, guitar, and scales. So the 24 elders, they judge, so scales. We have incense, and here's our altar and our tent. So there's our Tabernacle of David. Let's look at some of the prophecies. I have so many things to cover. bear with me as I try to, communicate all this. It's difficult. So, the prophecy in Amos chapter 9 verse says, I saw Yahweh, Adonai, standing upon the altar. And he said, smite the lintel of the door, and the post may shake. Verse 11, in that day I'll raise up the tabernacle of David, which is fallen, and close up the breaches thereof. I will raise up its ruins. I will build it as in the days of old, that they may possess the remnant of Edom, and all they which are called by my name. Now, this is a quote in Acts chapter 19. It began, the early ecclesia built this tabernacle of David. 19 verse 16. After this I will return, I will build again the tabernacle of David, which is fallen. I will build again the ruins thereof, and I will set it up. So they began to realize that the gospel will go forth to the Gentiles. Now we know that this is the Alpha and the Omega, because if we go back to that verse in Amos chapter 9 verse 11, he in the Hebrew is the Aleph and the Tav. And we have several Aleph and Tavs mentioned here in Amos chapter 9 verse 11. I will raise up Aleph Tav. Okay, so that's him. His name is there. It's a word in Hebrew that's not translated in English. I will Aleph Tav, the tabernacle of David. I will close up Aleph Tav, the breaches thereof, that they may possess Aleph Tav, the remnant of Edom. Okay, so as we mentioned, David comes in, and they brought up the ark of the Lord and set it in its place in the midst of the tabernacle that David pitched for it. Now David had Moses' tabernacle, even unto that day, unto that time of David. He had it all the way from Moses. It was kept, it was preserved. But he didn't build that tabernacle. He built another one. Okay, and we see this, 1 Chronicles 15:1, David made for him a house in the city of David, and prepared a place for the ark, and pitched for it a tent, the tabernacle of David. 1 Chronicles 16:1, and they brought up the ark of God, and set it in the midst of the tent that David pitched for it, and they offer burnt sacrifices and peace offerings unto God. Okay, now the entire book of 1 Chronicles is the house of David, is the tabernacle of David. Okay, so David gets this order of priesthood, the order and pattern of everything we can understand in the book of Revelation. Okay, David sets in order the service of the song of the house of the Lord after the ark had its rest. And they ministered in the dwelling place in the tabernacle of the congregation with singing up until Solomon built the house of the Lord in Jerusalem. And they waited in their offices in their order. Okay, so David puts together an order. It's called the house of David. Let's talk about some of the main order of the house of David. What is that? What is the tabernacle of David? What is the order? Well, as he began to realize, okay, we need to research, we need to go into the Torah, we need to understand the way to enter the capital city of the Promised Land, he then begins to set an order of priesthood. Now, this order of priesthood is not in the tabernacle of Moses. It's not in the Torah. Okay, it's new because it's now the capital city. It's the place there's going to be a temple. There's going to be a house. Okay, the place where he will dwell, the Most High will dwell. So, they order a priesthood by the number 24. Okay, this is the 24 elders you see in Revelation. What are they? They are elders that are judges. Now, here's our lamp. It's almost going out. But these judges, what they do is they have two things. They have a bowl in one hand, and they have a harp in another. So in our case, we got a guitar. But what is this? This is exactly what we see in the house of David. Because in the house of David, there are 24 priests in an order, 24 priests, okay? And they serve in the temple. And there are 24 singers and musicians, harps, okay? So David begins to place the order of these harpists, the order of the trumpet blowers, okay? And of course, as we keep mentioning, all of this is seen and understood in the revealing of Alpha and Omega in his second coming, okay? Because we see in Revelation chapter 8 trumpet blowers. There's 7 angels given 7 trumpets. Well, David does the same thing. He places 7 doorkeepers, and they're trumpet blowers. 7. He places 4 priests to bear the Ark of the Covenant. And we see in Revelation the pattern of 4. The 4 living creatures around the throne. Lion, ox, man, eagle. Okay? And the 4 army generals. The 4 spirits of the heavens. The first 4 seals.
Here in 1 Chronicles chapter 15, and if we go to verse 23, we can find these orders of doorkeepers for the ark. So we can see here Berechiah and Elkanah were doorkeepers for the ark. In verse 24, we also see Obadiah and Jehiah were doorkeepers for the ark. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. And in between their listing, we see those that did blow the trumpets before the ark. And here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These priests did blow the ark, blow the trumpets before the ark. So David and the elders of Israel and the captains of the host brought up the Ark of the Covenant. See, these are captains of the host, patterned by 4 cherubim, 7 angels, which had 7 trumpets in Revelation chapter 8, verse 1.
So David begins to identify all of this, okay? And the nail is the key to the house of David. So it is he who is faithful and true, the Alpha and Omega, who has the key to the house of David. What's the key to the house of David? Well, it's the tabernacle of David. It is the house of David, okay? It is the order that David entered, and it must be restored again.
Now, the key of David we do see in Revelation chapter 3, verse 7, to the church of Philadelphia. These things says he that is holy and true, that has the key of David. He that opens, no man shuts, and shuts, and no man opens. And he opens what? An open door. So this is a quotation of Isaiah 22. So if we go to Isaiah 22, here we see, and the key of David. Key of the what? House of David. And I will put on his shoulder, and he will open, and no man will shut. He will shut, and no man will open. And I will fasten him as a what? Nail. Okay? So what's the key? It's a nail. Now, as we go back and we look at Chronicles, go back to Chronicles and we go to chapter 22, David begins to, this is the house of the Lord and the altar of the Lord, a burnt offering. And David prepared iron in abundance for the nails, for the doors of the gates. So this is the nail, which is the key to the house of David.
Here comes another jet. But this is the time in the last days when this order and this pattern must be set. Okay? And David does this, okay, remarkably. And he enters something where, of course, David is a king, but he enters a priesthood. He enters an order that can be understood in these last days, okay? Why? David puts on the robes of linen and an ephod. Now, it's only the priest that wears the ephod, okay? You can see that in Moses. It was Moses. There was a priest that had the ephod. Well, David does the same thing because he's entering a priesthood of Melchizedek, where he's both king and priest, okay? And he breaks the bread with the people and gives them wine and gives them a piece of meat. Okay, so he's doing communion. So even Christ's communion is being expressed through David. Now, David, of course, is the prince in Ezekiel's temple. Not to get off track, we have another video. We'll link in this one, very important. But how is David able to enter the order of Melchizedek? How is he able to enter priesthood when he's a king? Well, he does so because he is the prince in Ezekiel's temple. Okay, and this is the role of the prince. Now, as David orders the 24 elders, the 24 singers, musicians, the 24 porters, then there are 24,000 troops times 12, which is 288,000, which is the virgins. You know, there's 10 virgins. 5 are wise, 5 are foolish, right? Well, the 144,000 are the same way. David expresses those, okay? 288,000, okay? So that's equates to the 10. So this is all connected, guys. The 144,000, the house of David. How can you understand the 144,000? You have to look at the house of David. They're there. That's in 1 Chronicles chapter 27, I believe. Okay?
And let's talk about this in 1 Chronicles 27 real quick. Here we can see in verse 2, over the first course of the first month was Yeshobim, and over his course was 24,000. So here we see 1, and what is it? 24,000. 24,000, 24,000, 24,000, 24,000, 24,000, 24,000. Okay, it goes through each one, and if we add those up, times 12 is 288,000.
So again, all this is not new on this channel. We've been talking about this for years, okay, literally since 2014. So, the house of David must be restored in these last days, okay? And that's what we're explaining to you on this channel, is this message of the restoration. That's why we spend so much time in the city of David. And David made him houses in the city of David, okay? And guys, we even believe we know where possibly the palace or house that David built for himself, the palace, not the temple, okay? And we'll show you that now.
Here you can see we're in the City of David Museum, and we're walking through to an area down below it that is what we believe to be David's palace, or the stronghold. Now, if we go to 2 Samuel chapter 5 and verse 7, nevertheless David took the stronghold of Zion, the same as the city of David. So we're in the City of David Museum here, and we're walking down to a foundation of something that quite possibly could be the City of David. It's clear evidence of First Temple presence here, which we will show you. But there are foundations and there are things. Now, the main feature down here are the seals from the scribes that were discovered. Okay, we're going to get into that. But what you're looking at is the foundation, and the looking over there, you can see out to the Kidron Valley. Now, that feature and capital that we're looking at was found down below. So this was probably destroyed and fell down. Large stone structure. Okay. And Hiram, the same, he made, he sent cedar trees and carpenters and masons, and they built David a house.
Okay, here we have a seal. This is very significant, guys. This is called a bulla. See, at this spot, a bulla, an imprint in clay used to seal documents. So we have a bulla. This is a particular scribe. It's very small, the size of your fingertip, and it would seal a document.
Here in Jeremiah chapter 36, we can read about this Jeremiah. You see him right there. Verse 10 says, Then Baruch read the books of the words of Jeremiah in the house of the Lord, in the chamber of Jeremiah, the son of Shaphan, the scribe, in the higher court at the entry of the new gate of the Lord's house. So clearly this is the temple. And in the ears of the people, when Micaiah, son of Jeremiah, the son of Shaphan, heard out of the book all the words of the Lord, he went down into the king's house, into the scribe's chamber. What we're looking at right here is this person in the Bible, Jeremiah. Geriah, okay? And that's exactly his seal right here. And so we can see where this actually was located. Where does it say in the scriptures? The king's house. So here's our seal, our bulla, and this is the precise location where it was found, clearly in the city of David, clearly in the king's palace. in the king's house, which is the scribe's chamber. The scribe had the seal. So here's a overview area. You can see this stone feature going down there to the left, and the rest of it is the King David's palace. So this again is the view underneath the foundations, some of which is not visible to us. But this is David's palace, guys. And so there was a stronghold there, and then he built upon it. So now you can see the arch feature going down of David's palace there. Okay, and there's other First Temple and Bula and seals found throughout this area. Okay, so there's a lot of amazing, unique features and things in archaeology where that we have the capital of the pillar, we have the foundations, we have the seals. All the information is showing us that this is in fact David's palace. Okay, and again, just another view of this feature as the palace overlooks the Kidron Valley there down below.
Now, David does something else when he begins to order the pattern of priesthood. He goes back to the law of Moses. He goes back to Moses and sees through Aaron how things must be ordered to Aaron's sons for various orders in the temple. And so he does this. Okay, this is the first fruits, okay, that are placed in order. So there's Kohath, Merari, Gershom. Okay, these are the order of the priesthood. So David sets these in order. And when he does, Kohath, the number of Uriel and his brethren is 120. And we've been showing you the 120 in the upper room, the assembly of the 120. So these are numbers by the shekel of the sanctuary. So here's our shekel of the sanctuary. Okay. And so the people are numbered by a shekel. You can see we have the scales, and so they're numbered and counted. So David is doing this counting of the people. And there's 120 with Kohath. Now Kohath relates to the 120 spoons. So Moses had spoons, and each spoon weighed 10 shekels, okay, and had incense in it. Well, there's 12 tribes. Each tribe brought a spoon, 120. So David is doing the same thing. He's putting this order of priesthood. Then our next is Merari. Merari has 220. Well, 220 are Nethinims. They are temple servants. Then we have Gershom. Gershom has 130. Well, the platters, there's platters, bowls, and spoons. Well, the platters weigh 130 shekels. Okay? So we can clearly see, and then we have the next one, Elizaphan. Well, we have 130, okay, and then the bowls were 70 shekels. So 70 plus 130 is 200, and Elizaphan has 200.
Now, what's happening here is really important. I don't want you to lose sight of what just happened as we go through this. So we're in 1 Chronicles 15, and you can see this as a census. I'm demonstrating this so you really get this. Now, first off, this is a census. So people are counted by a shekel. A shekel weighs the vessels. So the vessels are people. Later on, David does a census to the great multitude, to the rest of the tribes. And when he does, he falls into curses. Why? Because he's not supposed to do a shekel of the sanctuary to the great multitude, because it's a number no man knows. However, this is the shekel of the sanctuary counts these vessels. Now let's look again at the numbers so you can really be clear on what we're stating here. So when we say Kohath, okay, Kohath, Uriel the chief and his brethren were 120. And that is represented by a spoon. So there were 120 shekels that went into the spoons. Because each tribe, there were 12 tribes times 10 shekels, went into 120 shekels in the total spoons. Okay? Then we can see 130 here. So this is Gershon. Gershon and his brethren had 130. These are called the platters. So we have the spoons and we have the platters. So the number of shekels that went into the amount of metal and material to weigh a platter was 130 shekels. Everything I'm telling you is in Numbers chapter 7, okay? And then what it says that there's Elizaphan, the chief, and his brethren were 200. Now what 200 is it's the amount if you add the platter and the bowl together. So the platter is 130, the bowl is 70. So in Numbers chapter 7, the children of Israel gave a bowl, and when they did, the amount of shekels, you count all the shekels to weigh a bowl, was 70 shekels. So a bowl had 70 shekels, a platter had 130 shekels, and a spoon had 10 shekels. However, we see all these numbers as David begins to order the priesthood. However, let's keep in mind, he was not supposed to count the rest of the tribes, the great multitude.
David places this in order, the first fruits, okay? And this is, of course, what we saw, as we explained before, on Mount Zion, where they're assembled, they're numbered, they're counted. Revelation 14, we have the Lamb. This is all about the Lamb. They surround themselves around the Lamb, 144,000. And what do you have? Harpers, harping with their harps. Well, David places this order of the harpers, harping with their harps, in the Tabernacle of David. So in the Tabernacle of David, the same thing happens. Now, what's amazing is David sings the Song of Moses. That's in 1 Chronicles chapter 16, and it's also in one of the Psalms. I forget the number of the Psalms. Like 105, 106, I believe, are also the Song of Moses. So he places these harpers, and they sing the Song of Moses, right? So they sing the Song of Moses. And the same thing is Revelation 15, where we see those that overcame the beast. They had harps on the sea of glass, okay? Harping with their harps. And they overcame the beast, and they sing the song of the Lamb and the song of Moses. So we can see that by David. So David does the same thing. You see that? So of course, Jerusalem is a wonderful place for harps, and we'll show you a couple examples of ancient harps. Here's one that we're playing, and we'll show you some more people play at Jaffa Gate. But in 1 Chronicles 15, verse 16, David spoke to the chief of the Levites to appoint brethren to the singers with instruments of music, with psalteries and harps and cymbals and sounding and lifting up the voice. So here you can hear her playing, and in verse 20, there are 8 people mentioned of those that play with psalteries, psalteries like a harp, on the Alamoth, verse 21. And we can see 6 with harps on the Sheminith. So this is the order that David puts in place, and these are examples. This one I found in Cyprus, and this is also an ancient site in Cyprus in Roman period of a lyre, or this ancient harp. And here's some others that we find around Jerusalem. Now we have the order of the priesthood, the order of the porters, the servants. These relate to the angelic orders we see in Revelation. 24 elders, 4 cherubim, 7 trumpeters, okay, blowing their trumpets, okay? So now we can understand everything that happens in Revelation. We even have Obed-Edom. The Ark of the Covenant was with Obed-Edom, and he then is one of the porters. And with him, counting him and others, there are 70. Okay. Okay, we know the 70 is that council. So all the councils, all the orders that must be part of the last days assembly to restore and build the tabernacle of David. Okay. So guys, this is amazing. It is the nail. Okay, now let's just explain the nail. So when Christ says, he who is faithful, he is true, that has the key to the house of David. The key is a nail. Well, how do we know that? He says that the key to the house of David, it's a nail. Well, we see that because of Isaiah chapter 22. Isaiah chapter 22, verse 22. It says he will lay on the shoulder of the Mashiach, the Messiah. It's on his shoulder. The key to the door of the house of David. Okay, so the key opens the door is to a house. And the house is the tabernacle of David, is the house of David. Okay? And he will open and no man will shut, he will shut and no man will open. And the next verse says, he will be a glorious throne unto the Father's house. So, the temple, the tabernacle, the house of David is the throne. The glorious throne of the Mashiach, Jesus Christ. Jesus Christos. Alpha and Omega, Aleph and the Tav. It is his house in these last days that will be restored. And it's through a nail. Okay, because he was nailed to the cross. And his sacrifice for us is how we overcome. Amen? So, what have we learned? It's a lot of information. That's why I encourage you, if you want to actually apply this to your life, you can. Okay? In fact, I will show you, let's look at our little tabernacle here in the woods. And I want you guys to know that, you have to live this stuff. Okay? So, here's our altar. Here's our tent. Okay? Now, I'll show you this tent. And, guys, this is how I live. I can show you this tent in all these different countries, in these different places. I've been to 17 countries, okay, in 3 years. And I'm doing this by faith. I'm doing this by obedience, okay? But I'm living this stuff. Now look at this is our hanging in most tabernacle there was hanging, and I found this and I was like, I need a blanket because it's cold. And it's like my beloved is a heart, is a row looking through the lattice. This is Song of Solomon. And as the hart pants after the water brook, so pants my soul after you. These are things that David said. Okay? These are Psalms. Okay, and so here's our tabernacle and our tent. And here it is from this vantage point. And you can see it looks like squared off. Okay? And that's what the tabernacle looked like. So guys, this is the tabernacle of David I've set up, okay? So let's build the tabernacle of David. Let's restore the ancient past, the ancient ways, okay? Guys, I encourage you, if you want more on this, please watch the playlist, which we'll link, The House of David, okay? There's an order to the priesthood. There's judges, singers and musicians, porters, military, okay? This is the order of priesthood, the order of Melchizedek that we see in the book of Revelation, expressed through the 4 living creatures, the 24 elders, the 7 trumpeters, the first 4 seals, and those that have bowls that pour them out, okay? All of that is offerings. All of that is an order of priesthood that we see what the angels are doing. And it's all glory to the Lamb. So guys, thanks for watching. And as we always say, watch and pray that you be counted worthy to escape all these things. In Jesus' name, amen.